What is up, Patreon, and welcome back to a very special episode. I think I say that every time. It's not really that special. It's just a normal episode of the podcast. In my last version of this show, I gave you guys my favorite box office champions of all time in order of how I enjoy them. Very fun video, I guess, recording to do, and I had a good time kind of hashing out my thoughts because I've never thought about that before. Like, it was never something that crossed my mind to rank those specific movies. So Marley, thanks again for the idea. I've got another great idea. Thank you to one of the patrons. Underrated and overrated movies. Jip, listen, you are consistently giving good ideas. Everybody in this chat, Timothy, everybody, just constantly throwing out, hey, you should do this, you should do that, and I'm like, all right, we're going to do that. So that's what I'm working on next, is my favorite underrated movies of all time, my favorite overrated movies of all time. But in the meantime, while I'm working on that very difficult list, I just want to go through the movies that I've watched over the past few weeks, because we've had episodes of this podcast, but we've been talking about different things. We've not really sifted through the Letterboxd page. And that's what I want to do. And I want to start with April 29th, when I watched John Wick in preparation for John Wick Chapter 3. And then on the 1st, my wife and I watched John Wick Chapter 2. And that's the reason why I went back and watched these, to get prepared for the new movie. But I had watched them so many times, I wasn't going to watch them again. But then I asked my wife, Madison, I said, Madison, have you ever seen these movies before? And she told me no. And I just never thought about showing her John Wick. I never thought about the fact that she didn't go to the theater. I had thought she had watched it with her dad for some reason, the first one, but, she didn't, so we watched them. And other than a few minor critiques on Keanu Reeves' acting, she really enjoyed the movies. And she's hoping she's not on call that day, Thursday, so she can go watch the third one with me. So it was great to go back and revisit those. Just one of the best action franchises of all time, in my opinion. I know it's recent, but you have to look at the directing, the fight choreography, the stunt work. It's just fantastic. And it really coined the term gun fu, in my opinion. You're not going to find, hopefully, a trilogy, once I see the third movie, that does action better than John Wick, and I think it's going to continue to raise the bar. I gave the first two movies an 83%, which, seems a bit low for as much as I'm praising it. I do have issues with the acting, but I freaking love the movies. I think they're great. And I can't wait to watch the third one, like I said. And then on the first, also, earlier that day, actually, I rewatched Avengers Endgame. And it's just so good. I love that movie. I don't want to talk about it again because I've talked about it so much, but rewatch that. On the second, Long Shot, the Seth Rogen, Charlize Theron comedy, that was really good, man. If you want to see a good rom-com this year, a little over the top, a little too much politicalness for my liking, but it really didn't shove those elements in your face. It was a very well-constructed story, and I should have expected that from this director. I think Jonathan Levine is just fantastic. And I really enjoyed the movie. It's not the best thing I've seen all year, of course, but it is pretty high up on my list. On the third, I actually watched, and I think this is a record for me this year, 4 movies. So Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. That was a really tough day, by the way. That's on those days when you watch so many movies, you start out, you're like, oh, this is great. But when they're all bad, except for this first one, when they're all not very good or bad, that's when it kind of wears you down, and you look at yourself and you go, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal if I didn't have another job. If YouTube was my only job, heck, I'd watch 4 movies every day of my life. I would. But I have the other job that I have to focus on as well. So that was even though it was my day off, it was a tough day because just a lot of movies, a lot of mediocre films. But Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile was not a mediocre movie. I actually really enjoyed that. The best element, Zac Efron in the film, was great. He was fantastic. I don't think he's Oscar nomination worthy because I think by the end of the year we're going to see 5 performances that are better. I would even put Tony Stark above him at this point. But if the category was 10 people, I'd throw him in that. Right now, he's probably the second best performance I've seen this year behind Robert Downey Jr. in Endgame. So I have to think about that, by the way. I didn't really hash those thoughts out before I said that, but gosh, man, he's so good. Then I watched The Last Summer, a Netflix movie. You know, it was a thing. It was fine. It's very much a rom-com, very much a movie for teens, but, you know, it was directed competently and it had a good look to it. I just didn't buy into 2 out of the 5 storylines. Therefore, you know, it's not the best movie for me. I think I gave it a 53%. So there you go. The next 2 movies, I don't really want to talk about them again. Ugly Dolls, I gave this one a 33% only because I think the kids in the audience loved it. And there was one adult that was crying towards the end because there is an emotional moment. But none of it grabbed me because I didn't care about any of the characters. It was all a shoehorned attempt to get a bunch of pop singers to voice a bunch of cute animated characters because they thought they were going to make money, and they didn't really make that much money, so congratulations, you made a bad movie. Then The Intruder. And while I gave this one a lower score, a 30, because it's a bad movie, I actually enjoyed it significantly more because of Dennis Quaid's over-the-top performance. And honestly, I liked Dennis Quaid's performance. Problem is, he was in a B movie, right? Everyone else was taking this film so seriously, and I think that's because they were told to take it seriously. I'm not a fan of this director. Deon Taylor, I believe is his name, and he's just been delivering movie after movie that doesn't work, movie after movie that takes itself completely serious. Remember the movie Traffic that came out last year? Yeah, same. It's pretty much the same film, just different characters and a slightly different premise. I just, God, guys, The Intruder, it was ridiculous. It went back on all of the promises it made in the first act, and it really pissed me off as a viewer. Then on the 5th, I watched Avengers Endgame again, so I still got to see that again, by the way. I wanted to watch it 4 times in theaters. IMAX, here I come. Hopefully I can get to that before Godzilla takes over the IMAX screens. Gone Girl on the 6th. Yes, please. This was actually the first time that I had finished this movie. It's a funny ongoing story because Madison and we have been trying to get through this movie since the day we started dating. We started dating almost 5 years ago, and this movie came out in 2014. And as soon as it came on DVD, she said, we got to watch Gone Girl. We got through the first act, and then something came up because we were in college. We were busy. We tried it again a few months later. Couldn't get through it. Got busy. Tried it again about a year later. Couldn't get through it. The movie's great. I think the movie's fantastic. I gave it a 90%. But we kept having things come up. And then we both just looked at each other and said, we're never going to get this finished. Let's just stop. And then we were going through Vudu, and we saw this available for rent. And I said, Madison, we've got to watch Gone Girl, and we've got to finish it. So we finished Gone Girl, finally. And it's a fantastic David Fincher film. If you guys haven't seen it, it is one of his best, in my opinion. So please go and watch it. We rewatched Overlord on the 8th. Very random, but I gave this movie an 80%. I think this movie's really good. It is a classic war film mixed with sci-fi. You've got the zombie aspects. Yes, characters are over the top. Yes, some of the dialogue's really bad, but it's very well directed. Movie looked great. Scene at the beginning is fantastic. And the action is awesome. So Overlord, yeah, big recommendation. Then on the 9th, Detective Pikachu. Really enjoyed that. 72% from me. Not the best movie I've ever seen. Definitely some issues, some character flaws. I think some of the acting was not good at all. And some of the villains were over the top. And the third act was a very standard and cliche third act. And it's kind of like, oh, we just need to give characters something to do. But look, Ryan Reynolds is Pikachu. And that's what they did. But yeah, I still enjoyed the movie. I thought it was good. Then on the 10th, Wine Country. Watched 3 movies on the 10th, by the way. Gave that a 52%. Very forgettable. Very, average. Amy Poehler's direction was good, though. I'm really excited to see what she does again, man. Her look, her feel to the movie was good. Just didn't love the script. And I didn't love the fact that you had all of these incredible comedic forces and you gave us a mediocre movie. Speaking of mediocre movies, 38% for The Hustle, because The Hustle was bad. Really bad. It was a generic attempt at doing something completely different, yet doing something that we've seen 1,000 times before. I did not like this movie at all. Not much more to say about it other than the fact that they completely wasted their leads. And when you're trying to remake a movie and put a different gender, whether it's, from guys to girls or girls to guys, and just kind of rehash the same thing and not give us a script that's good, usually it falls flat. The Hustle fell flat, was not good. And then to round out the 10th, I watched The Wandering Earth, the giant Chinese blockbuster that came out earlier this year and destroyed the box office in China. And it finally dropped on Netflix, actually about a week ago. I guess I missed it that weekend. I don't know how I missed it because I'm always on top of things for Netflix. But I finally watched it, did a review for it. Glad I did. My review actually did better than I expected it to do. I liked the movie. That was pretty good, for what it's going for. When you're comparing it to disaster films from the United States, it's similar, right? But they gave an emotional level to the characters that I wasn't expecting. And it's just a big leap for Chinese cinema, right? Their original movies are usually not very good. And the fact that this one was competently directed, it looked good, and it gave an attempt at fleshing out characters, I really appreciate that. And I enjoyed the movie, 63% from me. Then, the 13th, which was 2 days ago, Monday, I watched A Dog's Journey. And if you guys know me, I don't like any of these movies. A Dog's Purpose? Nope. Dog's Way Home? Nope. Just because they're super cheesy and they're emotionally manipulative, which really frustrates me. And while I didn't love A Dog's Journey, and I wouldn't even say I'm a big fan of the movie, or even really a fan, I thought it was okay. I gave the movie a 58%. That review is actually not out yet. That review is coming out tomorrow morning. I meant to put it out today, and then we had a bunch of breaking news on YouTube, and so you guys will see, spoiler for my score, I guess, 58%. You guys will see my in-depth thoughts, but this is the best voiceover dog, generic human characters movie that I've seen. And I do recommend it if you're a fan of these kinds of movies. If you like the other movies, definitely watch this one, because this is the best of the bunch. Still feels like a Lifetime film. Still really bad characters, really bad plot, but you don't care about any of that. The cute dog steals it. But the reason why I like this movie a bit more is because the direction actually wasn't bad, and I like the human actors. The girls that play CJ, the older girl, and then our girl from Ant-Man, the little cute Paul Rudd's daughter. Yeah, she's awesome in the movie. So I believe that one's worth a watch if you're a fan of films like that. And then on the 13th, again, I watched The Matrix for the first time in a long time. Oh man, you know what I just noticed too, and this kills me about Letterboxd, is I always forget. I don't always forget, but sometimes I forget to hit the rewatch button, even though I had already rated the film. I forgot to hit that I rewatched The Matrix. So literally everyone who liked that review thinking that I watched The Matrix for the first time. Woo! I got to pay more attention. No, I think The Matrix still holds up. There are lines in there that don't hold up. Keanu Reeves, once again, you got to find the right role for him. I think this is the right role, but there are a few lines that are okay. And then the end of the movie, especially some of the CGI in the last two scenes, not the best. But for the most part, the CGI holds up. The action is great, and the story, that's what gets me about this movie. The story is completely mind-blowing, even in 2019. This film was so far ahead of its time, and I am so freaking excited that there are talks now to bring this series back, because I think there's so much you can do with it. I didn't love the two sequels. Once again, haven't watched The Matrix in about 5 years, haven't watched the sequels in about 5 years, so I need to see those again just to see if I like them maybe a little bit better than I did. But maybe you do what Terminator's doing. Maybe you block out the sequels and bring back maybe a sequel for the original movie, right? We've seen that not work, but we've also seen that work. So The Matrix is the last movie. Actually, you know what? I'm right in the middle of it, but I'm currently watching Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the brand new DC movie that dropped yesterday. I missed it when it dropped yesterday, but I saw something on it on Twitter, and I'm like, you know what, I got to see this. I got to review it because I love reviewing the DC animated movies. So I'm in the midst of that. It's actually really fun. It's really cheesy. Really cheesy. But if you love like nostalgia and capitalizing on your thoughts and feelings of 90s TV shows such as the TMNT show from that era and even the Batman show from that era, I really recommend this. It's a lot of fun. I don't think I'm going to go super high with my score, but it's a fun DC animated movie, and seeing the TMNT and Batman interacting, I think that's really fun. So guys, those are all of the movies that I have watched over the last 2 weeks. Once again, just the movies, not the TV shows. Along with all of those things, I've seen plenty of series, and of course Game of Thrones, that's going on. Lord have mercy, the divisiveness in Game of Thrones is crazy. But we're not going to get into that in this podcast. We're just talking about movies. I appreciate you guys listening to this and watching it. Once again, underrated, overrated movies, that's coming. Gotta hash out that list. A lot of things to talk about. I may divide it up by decades, maybe years, I don't know yet, but I've got some on my list. Got some overrated that I'm already looking at. Suspiria. Did I say that out loud? I know you guys are Suspiria fans. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go now. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and I'll catch you later.